Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. For those of you who are new, my name's Rennie, and this is Surviving and Thriving, where we talk about mental health. I share my lived experience recovering from borderline personality disorder, complex trauma, and just all the different tools and techniques and things that I've learned throughout my recovery that have helped me. And I'm continuing the conversation series that I've just started, and I am so excited because today we have a really special guest that I just met and immediately fell in love with. So today we're with Hadlee, who is a holistic health counselor with degrees in biopsychology and cognitive neuroscience and health behavior, health education, does a lot of work in the health space as a health coach, and discusses a lot of the holistic modalities to help women and people like really get in tune with their bodies and heal. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how Hadlee has explored how these holistic practices can benefit us in our mental health, because I learned a lot even from just one initial conversation from Hadlee, and immediately I was like, okay, people need to talk about this. And so, Hadlee, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been so excited. I was like, yes, I want to come on the podcast. Let's do it immediately. Like, we literally met 2 days ago, guys.
No, seriously. And this is not common for me. And those of you who have followed me on the podcast know I'm an extreme introvert. I've been in hermit mode for years. And so when I meet someone that I click with, I'm like, okay, you're my bestie now. Let's go.
This is it. Yes, I love it. Oh, I'm so happy to be here. And yeah, I think that, the mental health world has grown so much in the past few years, which is amazing. And something that I
Mm,
feel like is still largely missing from the conversation. It's becoming more prominent, but is the how we can optimize our physiology, our physical well-being in service to our mental well-being, because a lot of it
mm.
is based in the mind. And
Yes.
really, our bodies are impacting us on a level, like on a deeper subconscious level. And so that's where my passion comes in, is how do we
Yes.
connect the mind and body and utilize health and habits and behavior change to create the kind of lifestyle that we can have to really support our mental well-being.
Yes to all of that. I love it. And it's something that I'm diving into, and something that I've come to understand the importance of throughout this journey. And so before we dive into that, I just want to learn a little bit about you and for those who are listening and just what got you into this type of work and just your background in this work.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. So, if we want to go way, way back, I actually my family was really into health as a kid and personal development. Like, my both of my parents were into personal development. They were like into manifestation before it was like a thing. Yeah, it was cool.
I love that.
Um, and so I was like, in this world of like, we eat healthy, we exercise, we do all these things. And we work on our mind and our mindset. And at the same time, I really uh correlated my health with what my body looked like. So that
Mm,
was that was really big for me. As a kid, I hated my body, which is so sad now looking back. Even before the age of 10, I was like trying to wear as many clothes as possible at the beach so that people couldn't see my body. Um, and I really struggled with body image, and then I also struggled with emotional eating. And so at the time, I didn't know it was emotional eating until I was in my 20s, mid 20s ish, I would say, that I actually realized it was emotional eating. At the time, I was like, I just need more willpower around food, because
mhm.
I was so successful at numbing my emotions with food that I didn't realize that it was emotions causing the emotional eating. And I've had
Mm,
a lot of people really resonate with that, where they're like, "Oh, wait. Yeah, it is
Yes.
emotional eating.
Yes. I resonate with that. I had no idea. And when you grow up in a family that does that, you think, okay, this is just what you do. Right?
Yes. Totally, yes. And so there was really these like deprivation binge cycles that
Mm,
were fueled by, not liking my body and then, wanting to deprive myself and to try to lose weight, all of those things. But at the same time, it was also because I wanted to numb my feelings and my emotions, that I would then, binge after that. So there's just this long, long cycle of that. And then I also had a number of health issues as a kid. And then into my like high school years, I would get sick a lot. Into my college years, I would get sick a lot, a lot, a lot. And then my mental health really struggled, especially in college, when my physical health and my mental health kind of came to a head. I
mm,
think it was like junior year of college where I had psoriasis all over my face and body. Um, I had gained a lot more weight. I was really not just depressed, but like and this is a symptom of depression, but like so irritable, so
mm,
angry and irritable with everyone around me, while also at the same time feeling like I was bad and wrong because I was so irritable with everyone around me. And I'm like, I just want to be a
yes.
good person, but I'm so angry all the time. Um, and the wild thing about all of this is that like I had done mindset work. I had read, Seven Habits of the Highly Effective Teen when I was a kid. Like, don't sweat the small stuff for teens. Like, I was doing this stuff, but my
Yeah.
physical health wasn't able to get me to the place that I needed and wanted to be with my mental health. So, like, all the
Mhm.
mindset work in the world could not get me there. It had to
Right.
come from the physical.
Yes. And I feel like the way we understand it, it's always so separate. And,
Mm.
for me, I didn't have anyone around me talking about any of it, whether it was mindset or physical stuff. It was just coping and survival, fight or flight. And so I didn't even understand there was any connection between the two either. And so I that's what really struck me in our initial conversation is how as someone who's been recovering from really severe complex traumas and not just one, but like a multitude, like just years of trauma, basically living in fight or flight, just coming to understand the role that the body plays in that at all, like even understanding that basic connectivity, I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? And I love that more people are talking about it and understanding it now, but I feel like there's still so much for us to learn. There's still it's so deep. There's just so many complexities. And so I'm just like excited to hear like your takes on understanding the body, and especially someone like I have BPD, and something that I've noticed with a lot of other people with BPD is we disassociate. So there is like this innate disconnection from our bodies, and a lot of it is based in trauma and feeling unsafe in the body. And so there's this whole process now of like relearning to feel into our bodies and feel safe in our bodies. And like I didn't even recognize when I was hungry, and growing up
Yes.
like what you were mentioning, I relate, but on the flip side, because I grew up in a Black community. And so being like fuller figured and having like a booty and having curves, like that was the standard of beauty. And I was super thin growing up. And so I was just like, I want to eat everything. And then my family, like also that was their coping, was they were bigger and they wanted to eat. And so I was so disconnected from like normal hunger cues and just things like that because I was so used to either not eating enough or eating too much. And so that coupled with disassociation and trauma, like I am still learning as a 30, almost 33-year-old how to even feel into my body. Like, oh, I'm tired. Oh, I'm dehydrated. I need water. Oh, I'm hungry. I'm not just bored. Like I actually
Mm.
need to eat food. Like I'm still learning these basic things. And so, yeah, I really just want to hear from you on like what that journey has been like, especially given like you also have like experience with like having these types of experiences with your body and having to learn how to feel into, what's going on? Am I hungry? How do I feel physically? And how is that connecting to what's happening up here?
Totally. Yeah. I resonate with you so much about the like not knowing hunger fullness cues. I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I first started kind of I think it was like in undergrad where I first started learning about, like on Instagram, people would talk about, oh, like feel your feelings or like listen to your body. And I was so
Mm-hmm.
frustrated because I was like, how do you do that? Like, what
Exactly.
are you talking
What
about?
does that even mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, really like listening to your body, that was like I was so frustrated by that. But that's really what I help my clients do now because um a lot of times we are so disconnected and our really like our society kind of rewards being disconnected from our bodies, right?
Mhm.
Like as kids, we have to ask someone else whether or not we can go to the bathroom.
Yeah, I always thought
Like
that was nuts. I was like the kid ready to like form a whole coalition against that. I was like, that's crazy. What do you mean?
I love it. And like I get it, like if kids are just coming in and out of the classroom all the time, like, a teacher has like 20 something students, I understand like the necessity of it.
Yeah,
And it's like, wow, what a way to make it so that we don't listen to our bodies, right?
right.
Even like uh all of the ways that, diet culture has played into our society, especially with women, but also with men. I've worked with some men who like have it just as bad with like,
Mm-hmm.
listening to, okay, what should I eat? A lot of times that's the question. A lot of times that's a question that people ask me. And I'm always like, wait, we got to back it up because what
Mm-hmm.
should I eat? Like, how do you feel right now? Because how you
Mm-hmm.
feel is going to influence the answer of what should I eat. And
Yes.
and that's like a completely novel concept for most people. Like there's for most people there's healthy food and then there's unhealthy food. And maybe like if
Mm-hmm.
I follow a meal plan or a nutrition guide or a detox or a cleanse or whatever it is, usually they're not called diets anymore. They're just dressed up as with a different name.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not anti detox, anti cleanse. There is a place for those things. And for the most part, we're so disconnected from our bodies that we rely on, the nutrition plan or the counting macros or whatever it is that's
Right. Mm-hmm.
external from us. And we're not tuning into what does my body actually need right now? And so
Yeah.
what I help my clients with is like how to decipher, well, how to even tune into what your body is communicating with you at all. Because a lot
Right.
of people are like, I recently had a client who was like, who when she first joined my coaching program, she was like, okay, but I actually don't, I feel fine after I eat. I feel completely fine. And I'm like, you'll start to notice, like after I eat anything, and I'm like, you'll start to notice as we do this work together, you'll start to notice where you don't actually feel fine after you eat certain things or certain
Mm-hmm.
amounts of things or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been a few months since she joined and she's like her like celebration. I always have my clients do celebrations and her celebration was like, I can tell now. Like I can tell how my body feels. Um
Yes. And even your mind too. Like
yes, yes.
I'm still like learning how that's connected to it too. Because like you said, like, how do you feel? I
Yeah.
wasn't asking myself how I felt when I was like eating. And then once I started to notice, like, oh, I notice when I'm feeling this emotion, I'm craving these things. Or I also notice like when I'm having certain physical issues, I'm craving certain things. Like we talked about like craving burgers before a period. I think I was talking to
Yep.
someone about that the other day, and I used to crave sweets before my period. or like how I've been eating so many warming spices and like I struggle with anger. And so all of these different things that connect, it's why I think this is so incredible because like you said, people just kind of turn to like the easy answer that's like already out there, that generic, like, oh, I'll just do this diet or I'll just do this. And it's like, no, like, what are you feeling? Like, how is your body feeling? Like, that's all giving you clues as to what it is that you actually need, even if sometimes the craving is not actually what you need. That's the one thing I've also learned. Like, I'll be craving sweets, but it's like, oh, you're like lacking iron, or like you're sad and you really need like more greens, or things like that. And it's just like so fascinating for me as I'm learning.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes when we're craving sweets, we literally are craving sweetness in our life. Like
Yes.
you can't make this stuff up. Like this is really what's happening. And I
Yes.
utilize like modern science and Ayurveda, which is like an ancient health science for anyone who doesn't know what that is, but it's a ancient Indian health science that kind of gives us a blueprint for how to decipher what our body is telling us and what our minds and our emotions are telling us that we really need, and then how to actually give ourselves what it is that we need. And I
Mm-hmm.
find that it's largely missing from the conversation. The other thing is that when we outsource our authority for, not just nutrition, but like all of like our health habits and stuff, oh, I saw on Instagram that I should be doing more of this. I should meditate. I should uh,
Mm-hmm.
do more weightlifting, whatever it is. Not anti-meditation or weightlifting. I love weightlifting. Uh, and I do some meditating. But when we outsource our that authority to an external source, we think that we're doing something really great for ourselves, which, on some level, we are.
Right.
And when we're like, doing the macro counting thing, doing the diets, doing whatever it is, um, it's not only that we're going to fall off the wagon at some point, because, that's part of the reason that we don't want to do these things, because we can get really all or nothing. We can do the deprivation binge cycle. So that's part of the reason. But the other reason that it's not helpful for us is because it's not agile enough, like a nutrition plan is not agile enough for us to be able to um, give ourselves what we need at any given time. So when we're able to
Mm-hmm.
really tune into what our bodies are actually communicating with us, then we can be agile in that way. It's like tuning into our body intuition. And I have
Mm-hmm.
found that my intuition in general has improved drastically because like through my body, like by
Yes.
my body's intuition, it's like my whole intuition has come online.
100% that. It's like being grounded in healing that root, you know? And then once you
Yeah.
do, like you can hear yourself more clearly, actually. And on that note, I want to talk about, as someone who is healing complex trauma and BPD and like learning to feel into my body after like living in a disassociated state without even realizing it.
Yeah.
For me, nervous system regulation has been big because, like you said, right? Like I used to be someone that would just go to whatever those external methods were that people were telling me, and a lot of those people had no insight into what I was dealing with. And I didn't even have that insight myself, right? I didn't even have that awareness to tell them, right? And so they would say things like, oh, just go to the gym, that'll help with your stress. And so I used to be in the
Mm.
gym 2 hours lifting heavy weights. And then I learned with time that I struggle with a lot of hormonal issues. I struggle with a lot of gut health issues. I'm very disassociated. My nervous system is constantly in sympathetic mode, like I'm always in fight or flight mode. And so over time of doing that, I wasn't getting better, and maybe like I built some muscle, whatever. But like when it came to how I was feeling in my body and how I was feeling mentally, I was still tired. I was still stressed. And so I'm like, I don't know about you, but the gym is not making me less stressed, right? And so I had to look into things like hormone regulation and cortisol and nervous system and be like, oh, I know that people say that like walking doesn't do anything, but just taking a walk outside was better for me, or just doing
Yeah.
some slow, gentle stretches, versus like going super heavy in the gym for 2 hours a day. Like for me, that's what
Mhm.
my body was telling me it needed because I'd been in that like hyper, sensitive fight or flight state for so long. And my body was like, you actually need to rest. Like, and
Yeah.
you don't know how to do that. And you also have insomnia, so you're not even sleeping. So that
Yeah.
and like, hormonal issues was just a recipe for a disaster. And I'm still learning this now. Like I had no idea.
Totally. Well, and even like from an Ayurvedic lens, I would say that you have more of like the dosha, the mind body type of we've talked about pitta, the
Yeah,
fire type, but also
fire.
your secondary is probably vata, I would guess,
Mm.
because just from everything that you've told me about both like your physiology growing up and then also like,
Can we quickly
mental.
go over those, by the
Yeah,
way, for people
yeah.
who might not know? Like just like a little brief overview.
For sure, yeah. So the doshas are made up. There are three doshas. They're made up of the five elements, and so vata is the element of basically like air and space. You can kind of think of it like wind. So it's the lightest element,
Mm.
and there's when we're out of balance, there can be dryness. There can be like a lot of movement uh when we're in balance, we have like amazing creativity. Uh
Mm.
you might experience like a lightness, like a joy and energetic feeling, enthusiasm for life. But when we're out of balance, it can be like weaker feeling. A lot of times anxiety is associated with Vata. Anxiety can be influenced by all of them, but kind of like fear, worriedness, nervousness can be a Vata experience. Um, and so that's the elements of air and ether. Then we have Pitta, which is the fire element. There's a little bit of water included in there too, but mostly fire. I know
Okay.
the water element just kind of brings in like an element of oiliness. So I don't know if you have like oily skin or anything, but a lot of
I'm
pittas.
actually super dry. So you mentioning Navato was interesting. So I was like,
Yes, so
oh,
your
okay.
secondary is probably Vata, I would guess. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So the Pitta is going to be the person that's like, kind of type A more, wanting to get things organized, all of that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But also really driven, ambitious, um, and passionate, so passionate. When they're out of balance,
Mhm.
anger,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
irritability, that kind of thing. So that's
Mm.
all pitta. And then and also when they're out of balance, they might have, physically, they might have like more inflammation. Um,
Mm. Mhm.
rashes, gut health wise, they might have like heartburn, they might have diarrhea, all anything that burns, pitta.
Wow, you're literally like through the list of things that I've gone to doctors for over the past like 3 to 5
Yeah,
years.
yeah. So we got to get your pitta balanced. That's
Okay.
yeah, and it
Cardamom, no
influences
more cinnamon, no
time.
more.
Yes, yeah, totally. So all
Wow.
of that stuff is our mind and body are not separated. It all influences each other. And then we have kapha, which is water and earth. When you
Mm.
have water and earth put together, you have mud, right? And so what is lovely about mud is that mud can, we do mud masks. Mud can be super healing and lovely. It's like that sticky energy, but also we can get
Mm.
stuck in the mud. So,
Right.
so a lot of times kaphas tend to have bigger bodies, whereas our
Mm.
vata types are like the smaller, just everything about everything about vata is like more is like lighter. If we just think about the wind, right?
Right.
Everything about them is lighter, whereas kapha is like denser, heavier. Um,
Mm.
And when in balance, they're like the friend that you want to go to for a hug. They're the friend that you want to go
Mm,
to for support. They're super caring and wonderful. And they have amazing endurance. So they're the ones that can do the 2 hour workouts in the gym,
mm.
and they really, really benefit from it.
Got
Unless they're
it.
like
Okay.
super out of balance with Vata or something, because anyone can go out of balance in all of them. But
Right.
they're the ones who like benefit from long, intense workouts. So they're the ones that that are the long distance people. I'm mostly Pitta, which is the fire one, but my secondary is Kapha. So I was a long
Okay.
distance swimmer. It's like yeah, everything everything is like a lot of endurance. It's hard for Kaphas to get going, but once they're going, they can go forever. It's kind of the name of the game.
That's awesome. No,
Yeah.
this is so interesting to me because I like briefly came across Ayurveda like a year ago. And this was like after I started exploring acupuncture for my own like nervous system healing. And so I got kind of down the Chinese medicine rabbit hole. And then I started to see that a lot of different cultures across like our ancestries have some type of modality that's rooted in energetics and understanding like how energy flows through the body and how that's connected to our organs and how that's connected to our physical health systems. And so it's so
Totally.
interesting to hear you say that and also all the evidence of how that shows up both like mentally and like emotionally, but also physically, like all of
Yeah.
the different symptoms you laid out, the connection between the two, because I was ranting about this when I met you, but like the way that especially the US healthcare system is set up, it's so disjointed, even for
Mhm.
the body. Like you go here and because you have this issue, and then you go here and there's a struggle to find the connection. And if you like, God forbid, you have an immune disorder, most doctors struggle to find that because everything's so disjointed and disconnected. So it's so interesting to hear you say that because over the past couple of years, aside from my mental health stuff, I've been struggling with everything you listed. I had rashes that were unexplained out of nowhere, just all these hives popping up, and they were like, "You're just stressed. That's all we have
Mhm.
for you."
Mhm.
I had the gut health issues. I saw a GI doctor, got diagnosed with IBS, and then they
Yeah.
were like,
Which is
"Just
just a catch-all phrase that they just don't know what.
right, right." They're
Yeah.
like, "Just be mindful of food." I don't know. Like, I don't know what
Mhm.
to tell you. And so I'm just getting the runaround on all these different things. And you're literally listing out like, well, if this is imbalanced, it's probably connected to this. And it's just, it's both like frustrating because, the anger.
Yeah. Well, that's
But
the
it's
other thing is
insightful.
all of that is related to the anger
Yeah.
too. Like that's what
Yes.
we don't see is that no, that is all the same element of fire in your body and mind.
Wow.
And so what we need to do is balance you physically and mentally. We can
Mm,
come at it from both angles, but that will heal a lot of stuff and will regulate your nervous system from the ground up. So you don't have to
mm,
constantly be doing, which, I love doing nervous system regulation practices with my clients, doing somatic work, embodiment work, like all the time. But if we
yeah.
don't have the basic foundational, like our health is like kind of is balanced,
Right.
the nervous system regulation work is not going to be nearly as effective, and we might need to be doing nervous system regulation work like all day, every day.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. And I really want to hear more about like how you guide people through that. I think like for me personally, I really struggled to know where to start because I was starting out with all of this in crisis mode, basically, like in fight or flight, and also from such a low mental state that, when the doctors would suggest just taking care of myself and eating healthy, I'm in this mentality of like, I do not care about that.
yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, the like I mean, especially with like depression and other mental health disorders, but like there's the lack of motivation that comes
Right.
along with it. So, like, yeah, I get really frustrated as someone who I've never been actually diagnosed with depression, but I've had periods in my life that were influenced by my physical health, like always,
Mhm.
now looking back, but that were dark periods. And so I know what it's like to not have that motivation. Something that I talk a lot about with my clients is like, you hear in the wellness world, the fitness world, like, well, if you want it bad enough, you'll do it. Well, if you,
Right.
no, you just need more motivation, like you just need more willpower or discipline. And I actually don't believe in discipline,
Mm,
which is a hot take in my world.
that is interesting. I
Yeah.
definitely want to hear more about that.
Yeah. So I don't believe in discipline. I believe in automation. So what we want to
Mm,
do, my background is in behavior change science. So that's what I went to grad school for, public health, but specifically health behavior and health education. So it's like, how do humans actually work as far as their psychology and creating change in their lives with health
mm,
or any other area? And so it's the way our psychology works is that motivation ebbs and flows,
right.
willpower ebbs and flows. We are not able to be reliant on that. Discipline, we, if you rely on willpower and discipline, you will fall off the wagon at some point. You can
Hmm.
force yourself toward something for a period of time, absolutely, but you will fall off at some point.
Right.
Depending on all sorts of different factors is like how long you can make it last, right? But what we want is automation. My goal for my clients is actually for them to think about their health as little as possible. So,
Mm,
like in the wellness world, especially right now, I'm seeing all of these things that like people are becoming like consumed with
yeah,
their.
they're hyper fixated. Yes.
Yes. And my goal is for my clients to think as little as possible while being as healthy as possible
Hmm.
about their wellness. So
Yeah.
automation is the key here. And there are a number of different things that we can do that we need to do to get to automation. There might, it might require a little bit of discipline at first, but if we're continuing to rely on discipline over time, it's not going to actually be effective. So, what we want to do
Mm,
is break it down and make it, okay, so there are a couple things. One is we want to architect our environment to make it as easy as possible to do the thing that we want to be doing. So,
yeah.
like, for example, the classic example is like having your tennis shoes by your bed in the morning, like before if you want to work out in the morning or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
but even more than that, like one of my favorite examples is if you want to drink more water, drink out of a straw water bottle. So this is wild. I've seen this happen with so many clients where, I actually don't have a straw water bottle because I don't have an issue with drinking water. I drink so much water. At one point I
Yeah.
actually
No, I
drank
used to
too
be that
much
person.
water.
Mm.
At one
No,
point
I
I was overloading myself because I was told to drink as much water as I possibly could, but I wasn't listening to my body. And my
mm,
body, because I have a lot of kapha in my constitution, there's a lot of water. So, and I was doing too much water at that time. So, which is possible, people. So again, it comes back to like listening to our own bodies. But when I have my clients drink water, drink out of a water bottle, for whatever reason, the act of like picking up water, like a cup of water or a water bottle that doesn't have a straw, and tipping it up into your mouth is so much of a barrier that you won't do it. Whereas
hmm.
with a straw, you can kind of just like lean over at your table and just kind of like sip out of the straw. So,
Yes.
so like that seems absolutely absurd, right? Like, well, why don't I just drink? Why don't I just like think about it more and drink more of my water? But I'm like, we want to get it so that you don't have to think about it. We want to bring the barrier to
Exactly.
entry as low as possible so
I
that it's
was that
there.
person.
Yeah.
That literally was how I got into drinking water. I mean, I grew up
Amazing.
in a super Southern culture where we just drank Coca-Cola. That was like, and
Totally.
so and Mountain Dew and Sprite and like sodas, and I remember one year deciding I'm gonna stop drinking sodas, and I haven't for like a decade now. I don't drink
Wow.
sodas.
I love it.
And I did start like that. I actually started with putting fruit in my water because
Oh,
I just
yeah.
didn't like the taste of plain water. And then from there, I just had like the tumblers. I had like literally a collection of the straw tumbler water bottles. But you're
Yes.
absolutely right. And I've read Atomic Habits, and they talk a lot about,
Mm,
stuff like that. And so
totally.
that is something that has helped me a lot. But I will say there have been periods of my recovery where, like I think especially those of us who are like in the cluster B are like high on the DSM-5, like
Yep.
if you have no will to live, what makes people think that you're gonna have the will to get up every day, go to the gym, take care of yourself when like that that feeling right there is like that's your everyday, like for me, I didn't even want to get out of bed, let alone
Yeah.
like think about like how am I gonna go drink water or take care of this. And so I would have therapists and providers tell me that, and I'd be like, I don't think you understand. I don't have any will for anything at
Hmm.
all because I don't even care. Like there's a lot of like self-loathing there. But for me, like even doing the things that cause my nervous system to relax actually
Mm.
like gave me enough time to feel safe enough in my body to be able to come back to self, then to be able to be like, okay, but like that was a process. And I feel
Mm.
like sometimes that can get skipped over too, because there's we're still understanding mental health. We're still understanding like depth of how it can present in different people and just like what that feels like, especially for people who haven't been in those low places. Like it can be hard for them to be not be like, oh, well, just try harder. Like and they
Yeah.
and they're well meaning, but like a lot of times they don't understand like what's happening in the brain. And so
Mm.
even as we're talking about this, I'm thinking about like how I've learned about how we forget the brain is an organ as well, right? So like in addition to having these systems and understanding energetics, like simply things like sleep,
Yes.
like things like just sleeping more, just resting more helped my brain to kind of get out of that state of hypervigilance and to start to feel safe. Like I had a very overactive amygdala. So like I'm feeling things very intensely. And now it's like, oh, that intensity of that feeling and the ruminations is kind of lessening enough for me to be like, okay, now I can think about drinking water. Now I can think
Yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
taking care of myself
Totally.
more. So
Yes.
yeah, I want to hear about like your take on that and how you handle those types of things with your clients.
Yeah, so sleep is actually the first thing that I focus on with my clients,
Mm,
all of them.
mhm.
Even if they're like getting 8 hours of sleep, we still start with sleep. Um,
Yeah,
because and not just sleep, but their whole circadian rhythm. So a lot of times we think
yeah,
of, your circadian rhythm, we kind of associate, oh, that's sleep. But it's
right,
actually your whole day. It's how you
right.
wake up in the morning. It's how you are able to be awake throughout the day because the sun is up when we are up. And then it's also being able to fall asleep at night. That's all part of our circadian rhythm.
Mm,
So that's what I really hone in on first because we can do all of the nervous system regulation practices, all of the things, but if we don't have our circadian rhythm, like that is the nature of our bodies. And our
mm,
current culture is very disjointed with the nature of our bodies. I
yes,
truly believe that like that is the root cause of so many mental health struggles.
yeah,
So many. It's just that we are out of rhythm, like the actual timing of our days and stuff is out of rhythm with the circadian rhythm of the
yes,
planet and our bodies. We are nature.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, they do a lot of studies about that. I know, like, I used to work with sleep scientists, and
Yeah.
they talked a lot about like how even the time change is so detrimental, and you saw
Mm.
spikes in like crime even and like mental health. Like doctors would talk about how they saw an influx of patients come into mental health wards, even like all of these things really do influence
Mhm.
us, and we don't even think about it because, like you said, like our systems are set up that in a way that's so disconnected from it, and it's normalized. And coming from an industry where it was so normal to not get enough sleep and not eat enough, like I work
Yeah.
PR, for those who don't know. If you work in PR and you've ever worked in an agency, then you know that it was literally normalized to be like, I got maybe 4 hours of sleep. And it's just so bad because
And
then
it's
you
a
see that,
badge of honor.
yeah, it is. But then
Yeah.
once you start talking to people, like I learned that so many of us struggle with mental health issues. And I'm like, we never connect the fact that we're not sleeping or eating enough. And that's
Yeah.
insane. So I love that that's like a focus for you. Because actually, I don't know what your experience is with working with those who've been inpatient, but for those who have been inpatient, I've been inpatient multiple times. That is the first thing they do. In fact, they give most people medication to sleep once you enter into a psych ward. That is the first thing that they do. And I never understood it in the beginning because they didn't really take time to explain it. But once I did learn about it, I was like, oh, it because it was the first thing to calm me down, was just like getting an uninterrupted, restful night's sleep. Because even if I was sleeping, I was not getting quality sleep. So it
Right.
wasn't even restorative, right? So
Totally. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, and there's a lot that I do with my clients to make sure that it's not just the quantity of sleep, but also the quality of sleep that they need as well, because yeah, that part is so important. And the other thing is that like, if anyone's out there listening and is like, yeah, I don't really get that much sleep, but like it doesn't really impact me. They've done studies where people don't think that they are impacted by a lack of sleep, but then they do
yeah.
worse, on all of these all sorts of measurements. They
Oh,
actually very much like are quite impaired by lack of sleep, but they don't think they are. So which
right.
is really
Yeah.
dangerous. Like, especially when you think about like people out on the road and like, you know, and it
Mhm.
when you have mental health like struggles and stuff like that, that can be quite dangerous to not think that we're
Yeah.
impaired by lack of sleep, but to be impaired by it. So
Yeah, I think if the metric is just like, are we able to get through the workday, or are we able to tick through our to-do list? Like if that's the only thing we're going
Mhm.
by, which in a system like ours, of course, many of us are, then of course we're
Right.
gonna think we're fine because we're like, oh, we got
Yeah.
the we're good, right?
Yeah.
And then we forget all these other aspects of our life and how, we don't really connect the dots. Because I was the same way. I used to be that high school kid that was like doing great in all my classes, super active social life, and got like 2, 3 hours of sleep. And I was like, I'm fine. And now looking back, I'm like, I was not fine. And
Mm-mm.
this, I was not fine, but I had no idea.
Totally. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So really that is like the foundation for all other health habits. And you also mentioned like, dealing with hormones and cortisol and over
Yeah.
exercising and under eating, like all of that can really um, be impacted by sleep. I like to do a lot of like high intensity training and workouts
Hmm.
because I have a lot of kapha, so I need more of that. But if I haven't slept well, if I'm traveling or something like that, or if I am feeling really dysregulated, I don't do it because it will
Mm,
only stress the body more and create more
right.
cortisol. It's not going to actually be net helpful for my body. So
Mm,
really, we want to tune into what is my body actually communicating with me. And the other thing that I'll say is that when you get the kind of sleep that you need and desire, uh you start to be able to tune into your body so much easier as well.
it's true. Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, that dissociation, can really be super amplified by lack of sleep or lack of quality of sleep.
Absolutely. For me, as someone who's also experienced like periods of psychosis, a
Mm,
lot of it was connected to lack of sleep.
yes.
Anytime that I would go, multiple days sometimes, and when I was initially seen, I was diagnosed with bipolar because of that. They thought, oh, you're not sleeping for days at a time. But there were so many different health issues that were connecting in my body and reasons why I wasn't able to sleep, connected to like my nervous system and trauma and all of those things. But once I was able to get like a good restful night's sleep, I was able to come back to my body. I was able to get a little bit more grounded. And so it's something that's become like really important to me. I used to not care about it as much. And now I'm like, no, like if I don't, even if I go to sleep late, I will have to move things around so that I know I can sleep at least like 8 hours because I'm someone who needs like literally I have to have 8 hours of sleep
Oh,
too.
I need almost 9 every night. So I feel
Heard
you.
women need more, and I'm not sure. I know it varies by individual, but
Yeah.
that is something that's interesting to me. And I know we've been talking a lot, but I also want to talk about how we talked about hormones and we've talked about cortisol and we've talked about nervous system, and I'm seeing like how there are some things that connect with this. Specifically when it comes to those who are diagnosed with BPD or complex trauma. One thing that I have been kind of nerding out about and realizing is a lot of women are being diagnosed with BPD, but then the more they're seeing providers, the more the providers are considering that they could be on the autism spectrum.
Uh,
And it could be a connection between like complex trauma and autism. And my son is high support needs autism. So it is something that runs in my family. And I've had a provider tell me that I could be on the spectrum. And a lot more women with BPD, especially from communities of color, are getting similar types of feedback where they're like, they're still doing research on women in general across the health spectrum, but like especially when it comes to mental health and severe mental illnesses.
Mhm.
And so when it comes to autism, there is so much connected to the physical body that they're still learning. Like a lot of people with autism have gut health issues, have like very unregulated nervous systems. And so that's where the stimming and like, the moving and the having to touch and self-soothe comes in, which is something I do all the time.
Which
Um,
is so intelligent of your body and your system.
To
Like,
know, right? It's
yes, yes,
intuitive, like your body is doing it because it's like, oh, you need to move this energy out, right?
Mhm.
You're naturally balancing those energies.
Totally.
But as I think about things like that, I just love hearing like your approach about approaching this from like a holistic, like a whole body perspective. And so for those who are struggling, whether it's physically or mentally, and are just like getting into it, maybe to feel disconnected from their body, like what type of system or like what does your process look like for them to kind of start to explore that as a beginner?
Yeah, totally. I would start with sleep for sure. Like that would be the
Mm,
place to start. And then what I do with my clients is we start with sleep and then we go into, having well, drinking water in the morning is after sleep, which sleep is the most important, then the water. We go into that. Um, and then so the first phase of what I do with my clients is like really optimizing their circadian rhythms. Then we do a lot of work with nutrition and food psychology. So like
mm,
actually your relationship with food, which
right.
looks different for a lot of people, but it's also like a lot of people have very similar struggles with food. Um,
Mm,
you know, regardless of whether you're, on the spectrum or like have different diagnoses, like there's a lot of work to be done with your relationship with food. Um,
yeah.
especially with gut health and all of that kind of thing. So we go deep into that, and we utilize the doshas that I was mentioning before, because not everyone who has the same diagnosis is going to have the same doshas. So
Mm,
I find that viewing our bodies and ourselves from this lens of the doshas is actually, well, it can be really dogmatic. So some Ayurvedic practitioners, like I find that people are like, "Oh, I've done Ayurveda stuff. It seems really like rigid and dogmatic." I'm not like that. Just because I have a background in psychology. And
mm,
so it can be really empowering to look at your body and what your physical symptoms or your physical just like the things that you're experiencing are communicating with you, as well as like what your mind is communicating with you, your emotions. um and deciphering it from the lens of the doshas also can be empowering because it takes us from like I am my diagnosis to
Hmm.
okay, actually like here's what's out of balance with me and here's how I can bring it back into balance. Um,
Yes.
so I find that that can be a really, really empowered thing. Um,
Mm,
I have a quiz too. I can give you the link. Actually, I think I already did. For
yeah.
people to take if they want to take a quiz to find out what their energy archetype is, which relates to the doshas. Then they'll also get access to my resource library, which has a lot of information about each dosha. So that might be helpful for them. Uh,
Yes, absolutely. I would
yeah.
love that. I would love to take that.
Yeah, yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah, for sure. And then the third phase of what I do with my clients is the nervous system regulation and
Mm,
emotional processing with our
mm,
nervous system, essentially. So I find that once we have the first two phases, that circadian rhythm optimization, and then nutrition and food psychology, then we can really do a lot of refining because the circadian rhythm habits already start to regulate your nervous system.
mm-hmm.
So that's already that baseline is already there. And then and I also do embodiment work throughout all of the phases, but then we can really, really refine the emotional processing where we're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna feel and release the somatic work of feeling and releasing emotions, literally the physical sensations that accompany the emotions. And that comes at the end because when we do it before the other stuff, it is really, 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 really hard to feel into
Mm,
what our bodies are actually like communicating with us or like feel into what an emotion feels like in the body. So we do that part
yeah.
last.
Wow, I really love that. And I love that approach too, because I kind of wish that there was more of a connection in all of the trauma recovery work because I feel like just focusing on it from a mental perspective can actually be
Yeah.
really challenging and sometimes detrimental,
Yes.
if you don't have that guidance and the connection to like the nervous system and circadian rhythm, it could just throw you even further off balance. And so I really love that approach. And I think it is empowering. I know for me personally, and especially like with the feedback that I've gotten from practitioners that kind of communicate like, oh, you're stuck with this for life and there's nothing you can do about this.
Yes.
Like that type of feedback is not really helpful for those who are really trying and struggling to recover. And so hearing that like, there are things you can do to move through these energies and like better understand your body. And it's not like you're broken. There's so much deeper than what
Mm.
we actually realize. I find it empowering. Like even everything you've shared today about Pitta, I'm gonna definitely go like dive into that because
Yes.
when you struggle for it for so long, you just think, well, I'm just an angry person or I'm just, a depressed person. And you really start to identify with it. And
Yes.
so I love that this kind of gives you a tool to say, oh, actually, maybe not. Like maybe there's something more complex happening here. And there
Yeah.
are options and there are tools, and it'll just take time and
Yeah.
support.
Yeah, totally. And people often think like, okay, well, me eating like spicy heating food, is that really impacting like whether or not I'm angry? But y'all,
Right.
it does. Like it is wild.
Yes. I'd be very curious to read through like the resources and things that you
Yeah.
have because I
Oh
do
yeah.
feel like because of the way we grew up here, especially in the States, like people can think it's just a fairy tale to hear
Yeah,
like,
it's
oh,
woo woo.
I mean,
Yeah.
cucumbers and I'll cool off. Like there's
Right,
no way,
right,
right?
right.
And then and that's why sometimes it can even be frustrating because you're like, oh, what do you mean just go for a walk and sleep? And like it can be really frustrating. And it always cracks me up when I see those TikToks where people are like, I didn't want to die. I just needed to go sit outside in the sun and and sleep and like take a day
Totally.
off. And like it's dark humor, but I'm like, it's funny, but it's not because it's the
Yeah.
truth. Like it genuinely does help us, and we're so disconnected from that.
Well, and like, yeah, I think that there's like this eh, zeitgeist of, people being like, oh, you just need to like pull yourself up by your bootstraps and like figure it out. But really, like what I do with my clients is very based in behavior change science, like the actual
Mm.
science of how to make these changes. And like usually I have a like when clients sign up with me, they're like, I've tried literally everything. I mean, not always. I have clients who have never really worked with anyone too, but like a lot of times they're like, I've tried everything, and this is the only thing that has made the difference because I come from that behavior change. Like this is actually what our psychology needs to make these changes.
Right. I love that. Oh man. Well, I can talk all day about all of these things, to be honest. There's just so much to learn. And it is really empowering, I think, for those of us who have like start to internalize a lot of these issues that we have as just a
Yeah.
problem and, it's possible to fix. And so it just gives me a lot of hope learning about these things because I'm still figuring out new aspects to this healing journey. And this has been the most fun for sure. It's been the most interesting to learn energetics and our bodies and all the connections between that and the mind.
hmm
Um, but before we go, I just want people to be able to find you, find your resources. If you want to tell us where we can connect with you online.
Yeah, absolutely. So online, I am on pretty much all the platforms as Happy Healthy Hadley. So, and Hadley is spelled Hadlee. So that's not how most people spell it, but Happy Healthy Hadley. On Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all the places. And I'm also at happyhealthyhadley.com. If you want to chat about potentially working together, I can give you a link for a discovery call. And so I think I already did actually. So I think that will be in the show notes. But I do free 30-minute discovery calls to see if it would be a good fit. Um, and then I also have a podcast called Holistic Inner Balance if you want to take a listen to that.
Yes, incredible podcast. 10 out of 10 recommend. I'm already binging it. There's so many helpful insights. So if you are someone that's learning about the body and how this connects to the mind and holistic health, it's perfect. So
Oh, thank
I
you.
will have all this in the show notes for those of you listening. And again, thank you so much, Hadley. Like this has been so helpful. I think this is gonna like give a lot of people, hopefully give them a lot of hope and a lot of insight into just how much more there is for us to do to heal. And so thank you so much for that.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I hope that it was super helpful for everyone listening, and I can't wait to keep in touch.
Yay, thank you. And thanks for
Thank
listening, everybody. Until next time. Bye.